As the weeks wind down here, we're going to talk Browns Bengals, but maybe more importantly, Drew, we're also going to talk mock drafts. So hold on.
Finally.
So hold on for some mock draft talk. But first, we've got the Bengals, the state of Ohio rivalry. Eric, how are you looking at this game upcoming as Browns could hurt their chances in the draft?
They could. Vegas doesn't agree, but we'll see. So DTR will be starting in this game. It appears evaluation mode is in full effect for the Cleveland Browns. These last three games, they might as well figure out who can be starters, who can be backups, and who needs to get off the roster before 2025. You've heard the stories about DTR not being ready finding late in the week or day of that he's starting. So at this point, can he be a serviceable backup? This is all I'm looking for. Depending on what they want to do with Jameis Winston next year. So, just be confident and continue to look at these last three games. I'm assuming he's going to get the last three games provided he plays decently in them. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays. Nick Chubb, obviously, with a broken foot's done for the year. Maybe Jerome Ford can, have another long run or two like he did last week. He's not really proving to be that workhorse. Again, he's another guy. Will they keep him around? Or are they going to move on from him? He's still under his rookie deal, I believe, for another year. So have an opportunity at least for another year with the team. To help out DTR, it'd be nice if Cedric Tillman and David Njoku could come back from injuries, but with the concussion and the ankle injury for Njoku, that time will tell. But I'm hoping both those two can kind of give a little better evaluation for DTR. And defensively, hopefully Miles Garrett is back to seeing single vision. To hear the double vision, the pretty awful poke in the eye. That was not called. Illegal hands to the face. So I don't know what to make of the Browns defense. They've been very inconsistent at best. They've had their moments, but then they've had the games of against Taysom Hill and the Broncos that they did not look good. The Bengals have a great offense and a terrible defense. I would expect the Browns to be okay on offense against the Bengals defense, but I also expect Joe Burrow, Chase Brown, and Jamar Chase to have big days for the Bengals.
All right, we talked about it. This was personally, this was one of the most difficult Browns games to watch against the Chiefs, where we don't score. Jerome Ford was the entire offense, so it was really disappointing there. But let's look forward here. We talked about this upcoming game. Hopefully, they still win it. But Drew, I know I don't know if it was week 4 that there was hints of wanting to talk mock draft. Maybe week 7, where it was getting pretty bad.
Preseason kickoff, man. I am always ready for this conversation.
Always ready. We might start with our 2026 mock draft, but let's focus on 2025 here. I have a clip here from Field Yates in the ESPN mock draft with Mel Kiper here that we'll take a look at.
With the 5th pick in the Field Yates mock draft, the Cleveland Browns select Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle, Texas. Field, why did they make that pick?
More so, Drew, why did they make that pick? They got the Browns picking at 5 in this one. I don't know if we'll go 5, but how would you feel with Kelvin Banks Jr. On the offensive line?
I would feel like that would be a bit of a reach. I would feel like there are better players available. I don't think it's a bad pick. I think he is a very good offensive tackle. Maybe not very good. He's a good offensive tackle, and he's certainly the best offensive tackle in this particular draft. He is worthy of a first-round pick, no doubt. But if you're talking about top 5 overall, there are 5 players that I would like to have ahead of him. Shadur Sanders would be ultimate wish list. That's not going to happen. Travis Hunter would be ultimate wish list. That's not going to happen. Once those guys are gone, you look at and you think about certainly another quarterback there, whether you like Cam Ward or Jalen Milroe. One of those guys would have to be in play if you're talking about top 5. And if they are all gone, You look at Abdul Carter, the defensive end from Penn State, who I think is a very talented defensive end. The pick I would personally make is Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan. I think he is probably the most dominant interior defensive player, and there are several of them in this draft. It's a big strength, and I think he is sort of the crown jewel of all of that. So that's where I would go. If they end up somewhere where they're at now, somewhere around the 8 to 9 range, and those 5 players are all gone, that's when you start to think about getting the best offensive tackle. You certainly need one, right? Let's address that. Jedrick Wills has been terrible this year. He hasn't been great since he's been drafted. When they had Bill Callahan, they got the most out of that pick that you could get. But certainly every other offensive tackle that went in that first round has proven to be better. And in some cases, the cases of Tristan Wirfs, who they could have had, a significantly better, a significant upgrade. So they certainly need an offensive tackle. And if you're picking, in the lower part of the top 10, which is probably where they'll end up, that's a perfectly fine selection. I'm not gonna tell you to go crying if they make that pick, but if they get to 5th overall, you have to find somebody who can wreck a game. And Kelvin Banks Jr., he's not going to wreck a game for you. He'll be a very serviceable, a good offensive tackle, but you can find a game wrecker, whether it's a quarterback, whether it's Travis Hunter, or whether it's an excellent defensive lineman. So if you're picking top 5, I think you have to find just a game wrecker, somebody who can change the course of a game on one play, and they have that opportunity. So I would be a little bit upset if that's where they went. But, there's still a lot of football to be played. The Browns currently sit at 7th. They have lost 3 straight, and they have gained 1 spot in the draft. And that's only because 2 of those teams finally played each other, with the Jaguars and the Jets. If you saw the games this weekend, it doesn't look likely that the Giants and Raiders are going to win a game, but it sure would be nice if they could. They have a very high strength of schedule. They would slide behind the Browns if they were to come through with one. The Jaguars do play the Titans. They are both ahead of the Browns in the draft order right now. So if things play out the way Vegas would have you, believe that they will, with the Browns being underdogs in their last 3 games, that would mean they could bump up 1, potentially 2 spots to get into top 5, where Field Yates has them. He has them going 3 and 14 on the year. So wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if they did that, but I'd like to get somebody that I think can change the course of the game, and there is plenty of that talent in the top 5 this year.
Looking for a game wrecker. It was a season wrecker to have a poor offensive line to start this season. I think that walking away, I still remember, all the injuries on the offensive line. You can't avoid that. But the tackle position, Jed Wills, probably not going to be with the team next year, and just banged up on the offensive line. But I don't know. There's a competing video here. We'll go to a clip from Mel Kiper that even though they're picking Kelvin Banks to go to the Browns, it might not be the one of the strongest positions here in the draft.
Mel, everybody wants one of those, a left tackle that you can plug in there and have for 10 years. An offensive tackle is another position that you describe of weakness in this class.
I just look at the guys at the top. Kelvin Banks Jr. hasn't been Orlando Pace, Jake Long when they came out, Jonathan Ogden. He hasn't been to that level, in my opinion. Will Campbell, field tension about arm length, all that type of thing. Josh Simmons, who I loved at Ohio State, formerly at San Diego State, injured.
Loved him.
Out. Great player. That's affected that Ohio State offensive line. And one thing, what's the portal done? It's taken away depth of teams. So you don't have that 4-star, 3-star recruit ready to step in like you used to.
Mel?
So maybe not the strongest position. It's going to depend on where we draft. But I guess of the offensive tackles that are out there, it seems like Will Johnson and Kelvin are the 2 top ones. Eric, do you have that as your number one ranking for the Browns? Do you think it's offensive line or bust?
No. I mean, again, picking between 5 and 7 where they're slated or they're currently actually slated. No, I'm agreeing with Drew. Doesn't happen a lot on this podcast, but I'm agreeing with Drew. Yeah, I want somebody that teams have to game plan for. Um, Offensive tackles are nice, but you're not game planning for them. Kelvin Banks, Will Campbell will be nice guys to have, especially with the cap situation that we're going to be having with Conklin with a $19 million hit. Taylor and Batonio both north of $14 million. We're going to have to invest with either low free agents or draft picks. So I think we can get those guys in the later rounds. I wouldn't go too much below third, but maybe second or third round pick, we can get a left tackle. Yeah, and the two guys that he had mentioned, Abdul Carter being one of them, to pair that with Myles Garrett would be tremendous. I mean, he's probably a lot more than what Obo Okoronkwo was supposed to be for the Browns. Isaiah McGuire hasn't really panned out. Alex Wright had some promise and then got injured this year. So, that hole continues to be open and, not fulfilled since 2017 when Myles Garrett came along. And I would really like Cam Ward. When does it become a reach? Depending on if he's even available. We need a quarterback. I don't know. There's a lot of options that can go with that route, but quarterback would be my number one position. And then last but not least, I guess hopefully I'm pronouncing it right, but Tetaroa McMillan, receiver from Arizona.
Trattoria McMillan.
Okay. Yeah, 6'5" wide receiver paired with Jerry Jeudy. Again, it really depends on if they're going to be drafted in 5th. Will they be 10th? Somewhere in between. A big-bodied receiver that, we're not going to have Elijah Moore on this roster next year. I don't know about Cedric Tillman's availability next year, so we need that number 2 guy immediately, and he will be a number 2 immediately. Hopefully rising to a number 1, but he's another playmaker that this offense needs. So I think I could go a couple different routes, but I would probably not put offensive line first in my book.
Yeah, I'd be fine if they picked him outside like the 7 to 10 range. Like that, he is a perfectly fine pick. That it is certainly a position of need. He would slot right in there. It is a value position, right? Like to be able to block, the DE1. I would be just fine if they drafted Kelvin Banks Jr. My issue with the Field Yates mock is the people they passed on to draft him. So a little later in the first round, I think that's a perfectly fine pick. I just don't like it number 5 overall.
Well, we'll see. We're going to talk draft quite a bit more as our position gets more finite. So we'll still be watching. We'll certainly be watching the Buckeyes this weekend. And we'll be checking in on the Browns. Go Browns.